We're back with Anna Prouse. What a remarkable story of her involvement in the Middle East, and she's written a couple of books. One of them is called 2 Birthdays in Baghdad, Finding the Heart of Iraq. The stories that you're telling us are remarkable. First of all, your courage, but the question that I have is why? Why would you allow yourself to be in the middle of all this? Most people would run for the hills to get away from that, but you were drawn to it. Why?
You know, that is a question that I asked myself a lot of times, and I never found the answer. And even in Baghdad, you know, getting blown up by Qasem Soleimani was nothing compared to other incidents. I had my room get blown up in Baghdad with a rocket. Had I been in there, I would have not. I would have been dead. And before that, I was driving through Baghdad. This was at the beginning. No armored vehicles, and someone shot at me with an AK, with a Kalashnikov, 1.5 meters from my head, and killed everyone in the car. And I survived because I heard a click, and those things are. And I have to say, after those 2 incidents, I was like, what am I being told? Stay here because you're invincible, or run because
it's
eventually,
coming.
It's coming your way.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about our current policy in the Middle East and where the United States stands on the Middle East. A lot of people at this point, and the Trump administration in particular, is very gung-ho about pulling our resources out of that part of the world. We've been in these wars there for so long. In your experience, what would that do to that region? Further unsettle it and cause us more damage down the road? What do you think?
I think we have a classic example of how that worked when we pulled out, and in 2011, 2012, and how that opened a huge corridor for the Islamic State. Had we left some soldiers out there, it would have been a huge deterrent, because we're making the Islamic State way more organized than they actually were. They were not. And the Iraqis were not fighters. They were exhausted fighting, so they just let them into Mosul. They just let them in, regardless of the training that they got. You can't train courage. You can't train resilience. They just let them in. Had there been some U.S. troops just there to watch this, they probably would have never gone into Iraq.
So the pullout, you think, or removing ourselves?
The pullout was a mistake.
A lot of criticism.
If you go in, you got to stay in. You can't just go in, create havoc, and then leave. It's a big mistake.
Well, the policy is basically the Americans over the decades have been trying to stabilize the region, and these are all tribal wars. It's very complicated. The languages, the customs, there's orthodoxy, there's all kinds of things going on there that the Americans have really, on this side, in this part of the world, we don't even understand how complex it all is. And you're there trying to make peace and understanding and trying to figure out how to maneuver some of that. So you're now an expert negotiator. You have patience, you have experience, you have knowledge. That all kept you alive.
It did. It did. Also, I think they felt that I respected them. What I also learned in my years is don't judge. They come from different backgrounds. I used to play when I was 3 or 4 with Lego. They're given a Kalashnikov.
What?
How do you grow when you're 4 and Dad tells you learn how to shoot, because that's the only way you stay alive.
Wow.
So it's easy to judge from the outside and say, oh, this is horrible. Look at how violent they are. They're born smelling violence. Yeah. I was born, playing games.
So tell us about the 2 books. You have 2 books?
I have the 2 birthdays in Baghdad, but right now I am writing a memoir. It's an interesting story because I at first wrote a novel because I didn't want to expose myself. And then I thought I didn't have to make up anything.
Right, it's all this crazy stuff happening.
Because at first I said, I can't do a novel, I can't make up stuff. The reality is I just had to change the names.
Right.
And then I thought, if I really want readers to read it, not thinking that it's made up, but thinking this actually is real. These things work exist in the world.
Yeah.
I need to be Anna. I can't be someone else.
Right. And what's it called?
Honorary Man.
And what does that mean to you?
Honorary Man is a title I was given in southern Iraq by, the Iranian generals and all the generals I used to meet with, because I had some journalists at some point come and be embedded with my team, and they were just tell me, do you realize how weird this is? You just walk in with your flak jacket with flowers, and they put you at the head of the table, and you just feel so comfortable with this whole thing.
Yeah.
And they don't shake hands, but we all put our hands on their hearts, and then I sit down. They all knew what my favorite tea was, chai hammoud, the special lemon. I would get treated like a queen. And then we would start these meetings. I was the only woman with a bunch of, mustached guy. They all look like Saddam Hussein.
Right,
They
of
want to
course.
move on, but then they look like Saddam.
Right, of course.
And they,
they called you the honorary man.
And so I asked at some point. I asked, why me and why not others? They were scratching their heads. It's like, oh, this is actually an interesting question. And then they came up saying, well, because one of them, a general, said, because you are an honorary man. And they puffed up their chest and it's like, okay, problem solved.
Wow.
Well, Anna Prouse, that's incredible.
You have an incredible story. Thank you so much for coming, and we cannot wait to read the next book. Honorary Man hopefully will be coming out soon.
Hopefully.
All right. Thank you for coming in.
Imagine
for
the
having
movie
me.
this is going to be.
Oh my gosh, for sure. We'll be right back.
All right, thanks so much.
Thanks.